the way I'm speaking with you, that's the way I would speak on a video. Obviously, 3 years ago, my levels of maturity and language were a little different. But
Right.
basically, I never thought of what I do as content. But 2018, after switching to Hindi, I got sucked into that game and sucked into, so many voices coming my way that they sometimes overpower your own voice and they
Right.
become louder. So then
Uh-huh.
you start listening to them more. Whereas I believe you should never fucking stop listening to that own voice of yours, whether you call it instinct or
Right, right,
whatever,
right.
because that is the only place from where originality stems out, right? That is literally the only place. But with me, when I started listening to other people and stuff, man, the shit which I made on YouTube in Hindi, like I'm not proud of it. The most loyal, the most connected, the most genuine subscribers which we had, which for me is like a family. I call it the brotherhood and stuff like that. They noticed this, and they openly were telling me, like, to the point where one day when I saw this, I realized that this was a place in the road where we took a wrong turn, so we got to come back. That is why right now I'm on a complete break from Hindi YouTube, and I don't give a shit.
Mhm.
And I'm only going to
Right.
come back with one video most probably, and that will be, please unsubscribe from my channel, because I just want the real ones to stay. Because of the shit that I started doing, I got collected a lot of junk subscribers along the way. People who are there only for the immediate gratification, people who are there only to watch the video but not implement it, people who are there because they think that I can give them XYZ, whereas the real subscribers are understanding that my XYZ is just a starting point, and then the ABC will start again. ABC, like A2, B2, C2, X2, Y2, and then the cycle will repeat, and the cycle will repeat. And that cycle is basically your own personal expansion in every aspect of life.
Mm.
And you go through it again and again, and every time your consciousness is just expanding more and more and more and more. If that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. The
Mm-hmm.
fucking YouTube question just went everywhere, man.
Right. I mean, I was like, we effectively have started the podcast, but I haven't been able to introduce you to the people who
That's all
might be
right. Go
listening
for
to
it.
this.
Do it now.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I am here with Sirhud Kalra. Sirhud Kalra is masculinity coach and mentor, and somebody who does not like to be called a YouTuber, but effectively the numbers say that he is some sort of a YouTuber. Sirhud Kalra owns the channel The Free Man. It is now also a university and a social media network, which he calls the Brotherhood. Sirhud, according to me, is a pioneer in the industry as far as India is concerned. He was the first person along these ideas that I came into contact just by the means of sheer social media, and I have been some sort of a follower since what 2016, I would say. Yeah, even 2016,
Hmm.
later 2016, early 2017. I am
Hmm.
glad we were able to connect, my friend, because I mentioned the last time we spoke as well that that was something I had intended that you would show up on my cards once I start doing something, but I did not know
Hmm.
it would be this soon, and I did not
Hmm.
anticipate it to be this pleasant. So
Hmm.
I have a bunch of questions, not a bunch of questions. I think that would be demeaning. I think I have a bunch of themes that I wanted to discuss with you.
Hmm.
Have my ideas interact with your ideas, see how similar and how dissimilar they are, because
Hmm.
I have gone down that route. I have been a student of the school of masculinity as it stands. I have in the more academic setting, in the more field, how they call the field as well. Um,
Hmm.
and all of that, and it's interesting to know somebody else's journey that was similar in that sense. But
Hmm.
here is where I want to begin. I was thinking about what themes I want to talk to you about, and there were two particular pins on the board that I had, and the pins were had to do with you being a masculinity coach, right?
Hmm.
Before I ask you what masculinity is, before I ask you why it's needed, whatever it is, let me ask you these two questions. The first one being, why did you start the venture, and the second one being, why do you think it works?
Hmm.
Because I think it communicates a massive meat of what I want to get at in this conversation.
Hmm. So, coming to the first question as to why did I start this? Now, this is something which I've been doing for myself since I had my first heartbreak. All right. And my first heartbreak was probably around the age of 13. Because always there's a girl which comes into your life, the first one that you have a major crush with, and then you see a little bit of possibility of something happening with her. You start
Right.
imagining scenarios which are way beyond reality.
Oh, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. And you
Brilliant
start,
scenario.
yeah, brilliant scenario, because I call it the soulmate illusion, because you start imagining marriage, kids, like you go as deep as possible in every retarded fashion, basically. And with me, when something like that happened, and obviously it didn't work out, because for most of the guys, the first one never works out, you know, and that is, I think, the first spur because of which they either get into improving themselves. Like, they get into improving themselves, but normally it is either by getting into the gym, focusing on building a body and stuff, because they feel that the physical aesthetic is what will get women, attracted to them. That is one thing. The other thing is they focus on, okay, I'm an introvert, or I'm a loser or a failure or a reject, and I need to now, improve my personality or confidence. These are the two hopefully positive outcomes of this kind of scenario, but there are negative outcomes also. So I've had my first tryst with depression probably all the way back then, which was a very minor tryst compared to what I've gone through in the recent years. But I took it in the negative sense in the first particular, few months of this kind of a rejection, or whatever you want to call it, this kind of an experience. But after that, I was like, now any girl that I can put my eyes on, and if I desire her, I should be able to have her. And now you see, that is like, if we round that back to masculinity, you will see that that is a very boyish expression of being masculine, or having the power or the ability. Because having the power is one side of the game. Knowing how to use it, when to use it, is what actually makes you truly masculine at the end of the day. So you can say that the boy psychology, as Carl Jung would say, was pretty active back then. And I started studying about all this stuff. This thing started from there when I was 14, 15 years old, by learning everything about female psychology, how to attract women. I got into that PUA stuff, and then I realized that, none of that can be applied in India. I was in school, I was too young. India's culture is very different. This is all the way back then. So I knew that PUA, luckily, I did not get sucked into the PUA thing. As you mentioned that, you were in the field before. I was never in the field. I have never practically practiced PUA. And I would never do it, to be honest. I would
Just
never.
a point of clarification. PUA is pickup art, but please go ahead.
Yeah. So I would never practice that, because, but I was applying the trick subliminally, in my texting, in my own Indian adaptation of that pickup culture with the culture which Indian high school had. So I was trying to do whatever I could on my own, but then, the growth expanded. I realized I had a lot of girlfriends. I had like, what, 16, 17 girlfriends in those 2 years. Many of them
That's not a bad
simultaneously at the
number.
same time. Yeah, not a bad number at all, man. I think I was telling you this on the first call that we had, that I would date a girl, then I would make sure that I can date her best friend, then I would ensure that I can date their mothers, then I would ensure that I can date their mother's sisters, or whatever. So, it was kind of like a power trip, because you started understanding how to manipulate people's behavior. You started understanding how to achieve a desired outcome. Now that is again a power trip of another sort. So, but the inner, fulfillment never took place, because I realized that this, what I'm looking for on the outside in another person. Then the investment changed from investing outside to investing on the inside. And as soon as I started university, as soon as I started my bachelor's, is when the entire focus came towards my sport, because that became my next biggest weapon of learning discipline, of learning tunnel vision, of learning how to keep your eyes on a very, very long term objective. And I got into bodybuilding first, always a natural athlete, because I suffered from hypothyroidism and all that shit in school. So then I realized bodybuilding, I cannot progress because I will have to put shit in my body, etc. Then I went on to powerlifting, because I was naturally always a little strong when it came into being in the gym and stuff. So then the growth was happening in that area on the inside. I was reading a lot, much deeper about masculinity, this, that. So I was forever doing this shit for myself, and continuously sharpening that blade each and every day, each and every day, each and every day. In theory, by reading every day; in practice, by controlling my entire environment. I was a control freak of another level. All right. I
Right.
would control the lives of everyone around me, just so that my selfish self progression and self improvement would not take a back seat. All
Right.
right. So I was advancing, but if I would have continued at that path, on that path, then it was surely a path in which I would have forever been alone. And I actually know a couple of people today who are very good with self improvement, but they are alone, because they could not get their control freakishness in control,
Out of the
basically.
picture. Yeah. That's quite
Exactly.
ironic.
It's insane. It's insane. Just
Right.
yesterday, I put up a picture on Instagram because one of my closest people was in my city. Just for a day, I had time with him, and I put up a picture that you need to take out time to sit down with your loved ones or your family and to do nothing. Don't talk about work. Don't talk about bitches. Don't talk about your relationships. Whatever it is, don't talk about anything because celebrating love does not require an activity.
Right.
And we are actually like people, I'm sorry, I'm digressing a little bit here, but people who get into the self improvement game, if you think about it, they're at the end of the day craving love in some format. They're
Mm-hmm.
craving recognition, or they're craving that they become so great that they can love themselves. So they're
Uh-huh.
craving that love in some way or another. But you gotta make time for that fucking love, right? Whether
Right.
it is to love yourself or to love another person, you gotta make time. And I really don't think that love needs an activity. You just need
You
to
know,
sit the fuck down.
what I really think,
Hmm.
when I got into self-help, and I got into self-help pretty hard too, I learned the term self-help junkie, and
Hmm.
that made me wonder. I was like, when is this fix complete? When am I helped?
Hmm.
At what
Hmm.
point can I be like, okay, acha, अब मैं help do? Now I can go about doing stuff for my future. How long will I take to fix the pieces on the board? Right? Like, how long
Hmm.
am I fixing my past for?
Hmm.
And like the answer did not come to me. I wouldn't claim that I sought the question and the answer appeared. That did not happen. But now I do, as a matter of other things happening in life. But
Hmm.
it is the boyishness. In fact, I think it's one of the better ways somebody ever put the idea of masculinity is contextualization. I think it's key. I think contextualization, in some sense, is the closest watered down definition to masculinity that I've come
And
across.
now that you've said this, even I did not have this understanding that actually always the best ways in which I've learned through. That is why my free man ideology, which I talk about, focuses a lot on mythology,
Uh-huh.
because mythology is storytelling. Storytelling is contextualization, isn't it?
Right. Right.
So what you've said actually
Hold
just
up. It's not just storytelling's contextualization. I think we hit up a genius note there. I don't think it's just contextualization. Stories are also the most non-contextualized versions of a narrative. So if I tell
true,
you a story, what I'm giving you is an architecture. Take that architecture, stick it anywhere. So
true,
what you are essentially doing is you are carrying the essence from the story and applying it to micro contexts. So in
true.
both senses, providing you a context and not providing you a context, because scientific explanations are literal, right? A is equal to A dash, nothing else. With
Yeah,
stories, there is room. There
yeah,
is your creativity that gets
yeah,
involved.
yeah, yeah. And that
Right.
is the beauty of it, right? Because when at the beginning, like you asked before you get into asking me what is masculinity according to me, there is no definition because it is an individual interpretation which every man has the liberty and freedom to choose.
Mm-hmm.
There is no solid defined. There are obviously examples and best practices that we can pick up on by getting into mythology of like the greatest kings who ever lived, or the greatest men, not just kings, because you can be a king within your own home, you
Right.
know because you have a family, you have a mini kingdom. We live in a world where there is resource collection going on, so everybody has their own personal kingdom, but because they can't rule their own internal kingdom within their
Mm-hmm.
self, they are always failing and struggling to manage what is the kingdom on the outside. So anyway, I totally forgot where the fuck we were.
Right. I remember. I remember. That's my job.
Ah,
But think about the rather coincidence that Jesus says that the kingdom of men is within all men, not one
yeah,
man, but all men. Right? He
yeah,
uses the
yeah,
word
yeah,
kingdom. So it's
yeah,
not you're
yeah.
not very far off with that interpretation.
True,
But
true.
my question, the second question I had, and I think that should be
I
telling to
just one second. I
yeah.
just remembered the thing which I was saying because I wanted to thank you when you mentioned that thing, right? That I think masculinity is best taught via context, and that is fantastic because theory becomes boring for a boy growing up who's already hating school. And then if you try to teach him masculinity via theory, of which there are not really many theories around, to be honest,
Uh-huh.
there are only concepts or archetypes, as Jung and Freud would call it, or whatever. So
Right.
the contextualization is actually a beautiful way because you are able to give a boy, a male, the right kind of inspiration to look up to, because otherwise the inspiration he looks up to is the unhealthy masculinity around him. So
Right.
let's say high school boys who are into, doing drugs, or high school boys who are into, gangs and shit like that.
Right.
So either they pick up on those kind of aspirations because they find that to be cool, right? They find, like even me, I remember I became the school council leader in my school because since the age of 10, there was this one head boy in my school. It's a prefect badge which we carry. And I remember that this guy every day in the lunch break when I would go to the canteen, the cafeteria in the school that I would buy my regular shit from. That this guy is sitting there with two, three hot girls. That I was like, man, I want to be the head boy. So do you realize the reasons for which I wanted to be the head boy
Oh
were
no,
very
yo,
different?
yo, yo. It's the same, man. I was in second grade. I saw the head boy getting elected in my high school, and I was like, I'm going to be this fucking dude, right?
Mhm.
And then I never got to be head boy. I got to be president student council. They gave me the
Yeah,
second best position because they
yeah,
did not think I was disciplined enough. And I was
yeah,
like, no, fuck y'all, man.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
hated that so much. But
So
I
the
absolutely know
same
what you're
thing.
saying.
Like the inspirations we look up to when we are young males is always the inspiration which is very cool, and the inspiration which comes from the very cool side. Because I have a lot of clients who come to me for this coaching, right, and a lot of them are very young. I have clients from the age of 13 to 60, and the young ones, they're like, especially the ones who are on the introvert side, or low confidence side, or goal rejection side, etc. They're always asking me how to be that bad boy. They're always asking me how to be that, bad boy of the school or of the university who's able to attract everyone and everything. But the way the bad boy attracts everyone and everything
It's
is,
not by not
and
thinking about it.
yeah, it's an immature expression of masculinity which has not been fully developed and nurtured yet.
Right.
So I was on that same path, but then again, coming around, improving, sharpening the blade, facing the most ugly truths about yourself. Those were the ways through which I was able to level up every time. And ultimately, I realized that what I know, people need to know, because people close to me would always look to me for help in understanding themselves when it came to taking a decision for their career, for their love life, or whatever.
Right.
Whereas my professional life was totally headed in a different direction. All right. And when I was doing all that, but then this was going on. There was a phase in between where there were. I mentioned to you on the first call that we had that there were a couple of people who were, very close to suicide and stuff like that, and those were the people with whom, for the first time, I actually gave out what I had inside of me in a complete fashion to somebody, and these guys turned their lives around. Like one guy, his girlfriend of 6 years like cheated on him with her boss and shit like that, and this guy was heartbroken because he was like what, 21, 22, 23, something like that, and wanted to jump off his apartment, and shit. So pathetic, but turned around, hopefully. Very, very glad. Happened within a week. Just sat with him every day, had a chat for an hour, and that made me realize that I have never found something as fulfilling. And I'm not just talking about the suicide prevention thing. I just meant the impact on an individual which I was able to have. And today I'm able to have that impact on individuals which are in hundreds of thousands of numbers. And this is just via a screen. And that is fucking fascinating because I hate the screen, to be honest, but obviously the world that we live in today, and logistics and time efficiency or whatever, like it makes a lot of things easier.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
my
for sure.
my innermost craving is to sit down with people. Fucking 10 people is more than enough. Sit down, lay back, just have a conversation and a chat. And that is one of the best ways of, whether you call it growth, healing, whatever you want to say.
Right.
So anyway, this thing happened, turned around. I realized that, my professional life, like 1.5 years fast forward, I realized that, I wasn't really happy with what I was doing, even though I had achieved everything in my professional aspect at that age, which I was aiming for. And there was a lot of internal friction between who I am on the inside versus what I built up on the outside. Because what I built up on the outside was something that I had an image of as the most cool thing ever. Walk around in suits, be in a high-profile corporate job, do all that kind of shit. But I never gave a shit about it. I just never gave a every movement, every action, everything that I did related to that life of mine was full of hate. And hate in the sense that I was despising waking up in the morning. I despised going to sleep at night. I despised every minute of my existence. And we on the outside think of it as depression and, oh my God, he's going through something, or oh my God, something is wrong. But to be honest, it's just your soul telling you that, motherfucker, this is not you. What the
Right.
fuck are you doing? What the
Right.
fuck are you doing? It is
Mm-hmm.
the best friend ever to come in a disguise of depression, but
Right.
it is your best fucking friend, because I believe it's your unconscious, it's your subconscious and your conscious all combined together that give weight to that voice which comes out from within you, and you
Mm-hmm.
better fucking listen to it. The more
Right.
you don't listen to it and you keep listening to the outside world and adapting and adapting and adapting, there will come a day when it's too late and you can't fucking go back.
It's suboptimal adaptation, I think,
Yeah.
when you start. But tell me, because I have had a view that
Bro,
in
one
our
small
gen,
question. Is there enough brightness in your screen when you're looking at my face, or would you want me to open up curtains and shit?
no, this is fine. This is fine. You look
Beautiful,
great.
beautiful,
You look
perfect,
beautiful. There's no problem.
fantastic.
So what I was wondering was, I have had a notion growing up in. We're roughly the same age. I am 24. You're 28, right? It's a
27,
4 year,
yeah. Yeah.
right? 27. My bad. So
Yeah.
it's 3 year difference. We're pretty much very close in
Yeah.
age, and I feel growing up in Delhi, um, that there is a dearth of, let's just call it proper masculinity for the sake of a better word, for the lack of a better word.
Yeah.
There is a dearth of proper masculinity. There is masculinity being expressed in either extremely betatized
Mm.
forms, or in uncontrollably alpha-ish forms, like
Mm.
you know polygamy, but cheating polygamy, not
Mm.
open polygamy, right? Like,
Mm.
or uh, uh, just being dominating and being assertive, and then being hyper dominating and unreasonable, are two separate ends, right? So I've seen that happen, and I have a theory for why that happens. And part of my theory thinks the reason why somebody like you really makes it huge and has an impact on the population is because there is a dearth of masculinity in our culture, at least in our in our generation. Do you agree?
Mm.
Do you think that is the case?
Bro, to be honest, if like I haven't studied our religion, which is Hinduism, or
Hmm.
our culture and stuff, I wouldn't even call it a religion because it never really imposes anything on you. It's more of a way of life.
Right.
um Never focused on like getting into other people's business, never focused on violence, never focused on any of that. So is I believe it's a way of life, but where I feel that the next great amount of effort in my life personally will go to acquire more wisdom would be to go and lean into studying Hinduism as much as I can, because I do believe that our culture, and this realization has come to me very late, I do believe that our culture has that much depth and simplicity in it that everyone in the world can adapt to it and benefit from it at a collective universal level.
I
I
don't mean the traditional culture. That's not what I meant. But
True.
what I meant is more like the
No, I'm
recent
coming
culture.
around. I'm
Okay,
coming
okay,
around to that question. I'm coming
okay.
around to that. I'm just giving you a historical, or a this thing view of what India actually was, and the land that it was, the country that we had. Like, I'm talking in past tense right now, all right? And that is because the way at which the speed at which we have recently, which we call development, I don't believe we are developing, to be honest. I believe India is regressing at an individual level. On the outside, yes, we are developing as a nation, but every individual today is much weaker than our parents' generation ever. Like my parents at our age, they were capable and resilient to another level
Hmm.
compared to us today. You know, and that is a little sad, because you would want that a nation, as time progresses, allows for every individual to be a stronger individual, not just the nation to be a stronger nation and a more healthy or financially healthy nation. But the nation is made up of people, right? People are individuals, and I believe change. I've actually been talking about this a lot on Instagram through my Instagram stories recently. That change begins at the level of the individual. Whether it is even like, let's say, even me, if I'm talking about a lifestyle change in my own personality, I have to do it at the most minute level first, literally
Right.
through my DNA, or like, program my brain all over again to get rid of the old patterns. Now, coming back to your question about our culture and Delhi and shit like that, because of internet, because of movies coming in, because of Hollywood, because of all these Western influences, there is so much that has come in. There are, because see, India is a very stratified society, right? India has shit tons of people in every strata of society, from the poorest of the poor, from the most backward to the other end of the spectrum. And the problem is that everybody is getting access without regulation at the same time to unlimited power via the internet, via television, via all this stuff. Now, what that does is, before they have personally come to a level of understanding of defining what is right for them versus what is wrong for them, based on who they are, their roots, the society that they operate in, they're getting all this influence. And the influence which they get is at a personal level because they're getting it through a screen, right? So it is only happening to them. So collectively, the tribe is disintegrated from the inside, if you understand what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can choose to watch
Mm-hmm.
porn, I can choose to watch a religious show, another girl can choose to be on Tinder, another guy can choose to be on Grinder, whatever the fuck it is. Like, we are totally allowed to be wild
Right.
without discipline, without any form of regulation. And I'm not saying that we should regulate this, but the speed at which this thing has come in, I feel, has disintegrated every individual, is on the path of disintegrating every individual on the inside, because people are not able to match up their reality with what they're consuming.
Right. You know, I.
And if I may just finish this, if I may just
Yeah,
bring
yeah, yeah.
this around,
Please, please.
because I feel that historically, culturally, in the ancient times, the way of life was so because if you look at it today, after fucking up our entire life, we come back to the most simple things because we realize that is what makes it. All right, we realize that is the path to happiness: keeping it simple, having a few loved ones, not trying to socialize every night, not trying to go to the parties, like conserving your energy.
Mm-hmm.
So we come back ultimately to the same freaking thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then why don't we appreciate that culture a little bit more and just look at it as a way of life, and you know understand that? Because I do believe that Hinduism, and this is my recent revelation, right? This is my recent discovery. I do believe that it gives a very, very nice picture of what it is to be masculine, what it is to be feminine. There have been some practices which in today's world would obviously not work, and they should not. But the picture that we could take inspiration from is very maturely laid out over there after years and years and years of collective experience and
Mm-hmm.
wisdom and expertise. And we lack that today. We
Right.
lack that today, because of which we are fucking up, because of which we are either heavily betatized or we are heavily hyper masculine, or whatever you want to call it.
Right. Right.
And that is where the shit is going wrong. That is where
Here's
I
what I
believe India is going wrong right now.
here is what I think. I mean, I don't want to get muddy with the religious cultural question because that's a whole
Of
different
course.
tangent that we cannot
Of
stop
course.
talking about in itself, and we should
Of
definitely
course.
get on that sometime.
Of
Um,
course.
but here is what I think. I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned that these influences come in the picture before we know ourselves. You
Yeah.
also mentioned a while ago the fact that people who come to you want to be cool, because I remember I wanted to be cool, and
Hmm.
in my head the concept of cool was very similar, more women or
Hmm.
something like that. Back when I was,
Hmm.
I truly think teenage boys are like monkeys. Like, I really don't see the difference. We're not thinking straight. Our balls are doing our thoughts for us. But
True. True. True.
here is where I think we've gone wrong, and I think where we as a society are suffering right now is that we don't have an architecture to allow ourselves to figure ourselves out individually.
True.
There is this mass level coddling of the Indian mind that is in non-stop progress. The
True.
fact that we live with our pet, and it's a great practice. I think I
Yeah.
one of the fondest experiences of my life is living with my parents, But
Yeah.
if I hadn't left my parents' house to come here, I would never have known who I was. I would have
True.
sacrificed part of my own voice in lieu
True.
of their voice or their brother's voice or their sister. Like and I'm not even saying the bird needs to fly off from the nest to find themselves out. It's just that
Yeah.
every piece of architecture, which is a consequence of our history, every piece in the puzzle is designed to either impart the same economic trauma that my dad's generation lived through, or coddle you away to such an extent that you never have to think about yourself in the truest,
Yeah.
most naked sense.
But the problem is that the quarreling doesn't last, right? Because parents will die at some point of time, and the problem which takes place over there is that, what you mentioned, that if I would have not come here, which is the United States, that I would have never known who I was. It's basically another concept which changed my life, which is ritual initiation, which is getting the
Mhm.
fuck out, being alone, fighting the world, and
Right.
learning through that failure, that torture, and that experience. Because most people delay that step to such a level that then they're too scared to take it. The sooner
Uh-huh.
you take that step of putting yourself into the wild, the sooner you will become a greater version of yourself.
Right.
And people don't
Right.
realize that. I realized that at 21 when, as I mentioned to you, I was studying about female psychology, how to attract girls, pick up. Then I went into fitness. I was studying about health, etc., my insights. Then I started getting into this mythology side of things and studied Carl Jung. And then I came across two of his best students, Robert Moore, Douglas Gillette, who have this book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. And that is a
I
book
have heard of that book.
I came across that book via this YouTuber back in the day, Elliot Hulse.
Oh, Elliot
And
House, for sure. I've been trying to remember his name for weeks now.
yeah,
Elliot House. Right. Sure, sure,
Elliot
sure.
Hulse. So Elliot Hulse was there in my life for a brief period when I came across these kind of texts and things like that, and I loved that guy back then. To be honest, but now, like when I came across that book, and when I purchased it immediately, I read it, and it's a normal, like, it's a brief book, it's not too detailed or whatever, but you read that book and you realize that if today your support system vanished from under you, your parents vanished from your life or whatever, that you will fucking die in a week.
Hmm.
You will die in a week. You don't have the balls or the steadfastness to, like, fucking get through any of the things which even the regular world puts you through.
Hmm.
And that is fantastic, because I know men from incredible, I wouldn't call them men, I know boys from incredibly rich families at the ages of 25, 30, 35, who are still boys.
Who were lost.
They're,
They live in the
there's
Peter Pan world. I know. I know. I
exactly,
had.
there's
I was
psychology.
under the risk of being something like that myself, so I understand that.
Yeah,
But
there's their psychology is still of a boy, and that book is what made me realize that my psychology was still in the boy stage. That's why even I left home. I put myself through all this shit. Worst fucking experiences ever, but lovely experiences now that I look at them, because today I know that if again I lose everything from whatever I have,
I
I'll
can build
fucking be
myself
able.
up.
Yeah, there's no fear anymore.
Right.
You know.
Right. Here is what I think. You're right. The fearlessness aspect is hyper important. I think as a generation, um,
Hmm.
apart from the Chinese, and this is me speaking from like an international lens that I get from being here at a university.
Hmm.
The Chinese students tend to be a little more meeker than the Indians, but Indian men are just right up there with just hiding to themselves and being by themselves. But apart from
Yeah.
that, I also think we have this super compartmentalized structure in our culture for now, where
Yeah.
you know how the trope goes, the trope that three idiots try to break. Good marks in 12th grade, good marks, get into a good college, get a good
Yeah.
job,
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
married. That super like allow the person to think for themselves, allow them to fuck
Exactly.
up. What the fuck? And I
Exactly.
get it. The hyper competitiveness which backs this phenomena comes from scarcity. We
Yeah.
constantly live in a traumatized environment where, in
Yeah.
all psychological proximity, I see poverty, death,
Yeah.
fucking just absence of
But
resource.
bro,
So,
you know what? Like, I do completely get what you're saying, but I'll just add a spin to it.
uh huh.
because again, and I'm connecting this with our ancient culture, because I've had actually this one particular very, very strong experience, and I won't be comfortable to talk about that right now, because
I'm going to push you to talk about that.
I'm still digesting it, I'm still absorbing it, I'm still trying to fine tune it, because a lot of people, what happens in self help and like improving yourself is that when something happens or a realization takes place, they go full on into applying that shit and talking about it and stuff.
Right.
Whereas for me, like I've realized that I better fucking take my time, because otherwise I operate in extremes. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So what I realized with our ancient culture, it's is that it talks about not wasting anything. All right. And not wasting anything is different from the concept of scarcity. Because when you talk about not wasting anything, you're not saying that starve yourself, or you're not saying that you are in poverty or something. You like I'm talking about very simple things. Like my most recent habitual behavioral change has been that when I brush my teeth, that I switch off the tap, because I would let the water flow. And today, like when I had this experience recently on one of my travels, I realized that wherever there is noise, there is waste.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere there is noise, you come on the roads of India and people are honking away. It's wasteful. It doesn't make anything move faster, but people are expending energy, physical energy through their bodies, then kinetic energy, then mechanical energy, then sound energy.
All of
They're
that. All of that.
continuously wasting energy, whether
By
in
doing
any
definitely.
freaking example or context you want to take it. And I realized that, we in the ancient culture, like they talk about having whatever you need, but not going beyond that. Because why would you want to indulge in wasteful shit and get lost in that? Do whatever you need, so that at least you can keep your own senses and your own self in check.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why, like, the smallest change, and I've realized this, my brother, I've realized this, that the biggest freaking impacts in life are coming from like literally the smallest behavioral patterns that you have.
Mm-hmm.
They are the greatest example of showing what kind of a person you are, from the way you
Mm-hmm.
walk, the way you talk, to how you conduct yourself, to anything. It is a massive reflection of who you are on the inside, how you are in the
Right.
world, all of that. And because what I've started coming across is that everyone I admire even today, the real
Mm-hmm.
life inspirations in my life, the real life elder people in my life, that they all carry grace.
Right.
And the reason they carry grace is because they don't do anything which is unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Every action that they do,
Is
every
measured.
every action that they take, every word that they speak, every thought, I'm sure this has fine tuned to a level where even in their own head this shit is happening. I'm sure any thought which also comes into their mind is not an unnecessary thought.
Right.
And I believe, see, because ultimately we are contained within our physicality, right? Whether we are an
Right.
atma, a soul, whatever we are contained within our physicality. And within that physicality, we are limited by energy. All right.
Uh-huh.
Now, now
Right.
what happens is that when you have limited energy, and if you spend time hating on someone, or if you spend time contemplating riches and desires which you don't need, or
Right.
whatever you want to think about, you are never going to be able to reach your fullest potential, because you have not sharpened that blade to that level where it only touches those things which are necessary and required for you.
Right.
You get
Right.
what I mean? Bro,
I
give me
kind of
one
do.
second. What I want to do
Uh-huh.
is I want to get one of those extension cords, because there's a few things which like might run out of battery, my phone
Okay.
especially.
Yeah,
Give
yeah,
me
yeah.
1 second.
Yeah, I'm hanging. I'm hanging. I'm here.
Yeah, you here?
Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful.
Here is what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Once you put your thing in charge. I recently got into some kind of a trouble in a
Okay.
psychology class here at Columbia
Okay.
because I was like, the only time I'm listening to who a person really is when they're not telling me who they are.
Yeah.
Because I
True.
think we have no fucking idea who we are, and it's
True.
in when we're not thinking about it that we're really communicating who. So you are very right. It's in the how you do things. My the one of the first few places I dip my beak into test somebody's depth is
Yeah.
how they talk to me. When there
Yeah.
is people who are either very afraid of me or excessively like needlessly assertive, I'm like these are the weakest. Discard because
Yeah.
how somebody speaks to you, how much they measure up in a conversation
Yeah.
is a massive tell, and it's not bad. It's part of the journey. If you have any
Yeah.
compassion, you understand that you were there once, I was there, and there is people where I'm just like I'm silenced, like I don't know how to respond. There's people who are twice, thrice, 100 times my word, so I get that.
Yeah.
But tell me what you think about
About.
I've been thinking about this phenomenon, and I don't know if you got time to check some of the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that I've done already. There is a segment that I have, and I'm going to
Yeah.
try and make it a recurring segment called Date.
Yeah. Date.
Uh, yes. And so what I
Okay.
do is I sit down with my very white girlfriend, and then hopefully a few other guests on, and we
Yeah.
talk about we converse about dating, sex, love, romance, all those
Yeah.
things in
Yeah.
the most brutally honest, authentic, unabridged, unfiltered, class fashion that I bring to the table, and in the very polished, very graceful fashion that she brings to the table. We
Beautiful.
riff on issues of sex. And why
Yeah.
I started that is because I think that there is such a fucking shroud around the conversation, the most fundamental conversation of sex
Mm-hmm.
in my
Mm-hmm.
generation, in my culture. Less
Mm-hmm.
so than my dad's generation for sure, but just massively so in overall speaking. That
Yeah.
it leads to that it bleeds into perverted means of expression of sexuality.
Okay.
So,
Give me
what do
an
you think?
example because I'm not sure if I follow you completely.
Yeah, here is what I think to put it simply. मेरे को लगता है the fact that we don't talk about sex leads us to all these ugly places with sex. That
Okay.
we are misbehaving sexual entities as a generation almost in the sense of Nirbhaya or the rape
Hmm.
statistics that come out of India,
Mm-hmm.
or be that the
Mm-hmm.
porn statistics that come out of India, or be that
Hmm.
the adultery statistics that all of that is because we don't fucking talk about sex. I remember, bro, growing up, as soon as the nearest coordinate around sex was mentioned on the TV, my
Everybody
dad would
would
change
become
the channel.
uncomfortable.
My
Yeah.
dad would
Yeah. No.
change the channel. I was like, I
Yeah.
know, like I know what this is. This is biology. I have a PP, daddy. I have a
Yeah.
PP. Like
Yeah.
Um, what do you think? What do you think about that? Do you think there needs to be more of a conversation around sex?
You know what is happening, in my opinion, because of what I see on social media. Social media is a very good indicator of where the fuck people are going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
All
Mm-hmm.
right. And what I notice in my country is that, and it saddens me, is that that openness is coming through, that ability to talk about all these things is coming through, but it is coming through in a way where it is swinging completely on the other side. All right. And when it swings completely on the other side, again, there is imbalance. So if you look at it, if you take an example of rape, all right, and if you take an example of India and the way this thing happened, which was a dreadful case, the way then people talk about it, and the way, whether it's stand-up comedy in India, whether it is whatever it is, they bring it off in a way where the pervertedness is only depicted for males,
Mm-hmm.
and they depict it in a way where this is something which just men do. All right,
Mm-hmm.
that this is just something which, this is all your brothers, like every man is, a possible rapist and shit like that. and
Right.
and that saddens me, because you see any kind of development, whether you look at even the wrong aspects of feminism today, which like the majority are wrong, to be honest, and the focus of feminism, in my opinion, is not even going in the right place anymore. But people are coming to that awakening themselves now, and especially you can see feminists in the West, like real feminists are, there's Christina Hoff Summers. I don't know if you know about her.
I know
There's a
Christina
few.
Half Summers.
Yeah, I don't know if
Like,
there's this. So, whereas in Bollywood, there are women taking advantage of feminism for marketing. You know,
it's a
there are women
social
in.
currency.
It is a social currency. It is the biggest fucking social currency. I can sell you a
No, no, no.
female product,
No, 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 not the biggest, the easiest.
the easiest.
Hypermoralization is the easiest, the most convenient social
Yes,
currency. And I
yes.
get into a devious idea about the entire phenomena there. I don't want to, but continue what you were saying.
so I do believe India is being more and more comfortable to talk about all these things, but I at the same time do not, it saddens me when I see that the pervertedness is only shown for men. Because if we take rape as an incident, yes, crime is bad, rape is bad, it should be stopped. It should be, ensured that people are not leaning into those kind of tendencies, etc. But it will never happen if you attack an entire gender.
I
It
see where
just
you're coming
cannot.
from. I see where you're
Where
coming
I'm
from.
where I'm going to go with this is that any kind of development, any kind of social change cannot happen on divisive politics or divisive social justice movements. When you talk about giving only women a lot of shit, rights or advantages, etc., sooner or later the other gender, the other category of the population will have resentment, will have
Mhm.
anger.
So one of the initiatives that I want to do, if I ever come, and there is a high odd that I do, but if I ever come back to India and I'm continuing to run my enterprise there as well, is build more awareness about sex by just talking about it in the most unabridged fashion. The most poker faced, straight faced conversation about sex, how it
Hmm.
works, how long it lasts, how penis size matters. Like, I'm not going to hold back on shit. It's like,
Hmm.
this is what it is. Okay. And I'm going
Hmm.
to let people be uncomfortable. And
You
the
won't
notion is,
you won't believe, bro. Like the first video I made on YouTube and released was how to lick pussy. That was my first video in
I
a
remember.
country like India, and I
Mhm.
launched with that shit. And I launched because I needed people from the start to get filtered out. I did not want any person who lies to themselves to be
Mhm.
watching me, because I was like, that is going to go waste. Those are not the kind of people I want to attract. They themselves don't know their own truth. How will they ever understand what I'm talking about? Because when I'm talking and I'm expressing, and this is back in 2016, me in a wheelchair for six
Mhm.
months making these videos, and I spoke about how to lick pussy, which was a wonderful video. Like, by the way, and I'm not like boasting about this myself. I've had women chase me down physically in whichever location I am in to actually practice that video practically, if you know what
Oh,
I
for
mean.
sure. No fucking
All right.
way.
So I've had comments under that video. I've had women commenting under that video that more men need to see this, etc., etc., etc. Because the
Uh,
thing is, talking about female sexuality, when the feminists, for example, demonize men because of one incident of rape or two incidents or some certain incidents, they make it very, very difficult for anyone to be honest and open about female sexuality.
uh-huh.
And
You know,
you
one of
realize
the
that
things.
female sexuality is it's a freaking superpower. If anybody can understand female sexuality, they can understand the way this universe works. I really, really believe so, because it is an incredible art form if you will understand a female to that depth, that she can be beauty and a beast at the same time. And you realize the universe operates in that same spectrum of duality, and we got to learn how
It's
to
the
balance that
same for
shit.
men as well. It's the same
Of
for men as well.
course,
The
of
gentle giant,
course,
right?
of course. But what I want to point out over here is that, rape is wrong. That is obvious for any person with
Let's just
a
emphasize that
balanced
once
head.
more for people who might be sensitized by
Yes,
that. We are both
yes,
on the same page. Rape's horrible.
yes.
Okay,
Rape's horrible. Now, what
right.
happens is when you pick an entire population segment of an entire nation, that Indian men are pigs, Indian men are rapists, Indian men are this. By the way, you yourself might be an Indian with an Indian father, an Indian brother, etc. You just skip that point. You skip the point of Mahatma Gandhi. You just skip every possible good thing done by any man ever possible. But
Right.
the problem is, if you will, this is, and I'm not sure if the statistics still hold true today, but back in 2014, when I was so pissed off with these things going around, I never used to communicate with the people the way I do today. I was not a public figure and stuff like that, but I was so pissed off at how misguided people were, because whatever the media would throw in their face, or whatever was the first impulse, they would catch on to that. Whatever was socially acceptable, whatever the guys think talking about would get more female attention to them, which was
Mhm.
basically agreeing with females in every freaking thing.
Betaization. That's classic
betatization,
beta
whatever.
behavior.
So the problem was that if you look at the statistics, you have a higher probability. Like if you look at the population of India and if you look at the incidence of rape, the probability of getting raped on a per capita basis is much lesser in India than many Western countries, by the way. All
It's
right.
just tricky territory, man. It's just tricky territory to talk about. Like
It
we
is
can
tricky
enter into
territory, but the
waters.
thing
Just
is,
yeah.
but the thing is, truth is not going to die out just because people don't talk about it.
Sure, I get
Truth,
that.
truth only resurfaces
Uh-huh.
in very ugly manner, in a very ugly manner, if it is not addressed at the right time in the right medium. And
Mhm.
this shocked me because I sincerely believed, oh, India, we have become the rape capital of the world, but we are
Mhm.
not.
Mhm.
We have good men in this country, men who are working for their families,
Sure.
men who are
As
working
far
for
as
their
the
wives.
grander, as far as the grander point goes, uh, that it's basically we have good men, and to antagonize an entire section of the population for the acts of a few. It's almost hypocritical when you say you cannot criticize Islam because of a few bad apples.
Yeah, yeah,
It's likewise horrible to criticize
yeah,
all Indian men for a few bad apples.
true.
However, I tend to be more on the side where I see that the subversive masculinity, the perversive nature of almost, and I'm hypercritical of Indian men. I had a similar enterprise. I've been mentoring a few men in my life here and there.
Hmm.
Back in India, I've really been very close with the Indian male
Beautiful,
psyche. Um,
beautiful.
and I think it's at its core there is some misguided, horrible, unempathetic, and discompassionate. Not every man. I've known some fantastic men. I am a product of some of the most fantastic men that I've met in my life. There is no two ways about
Beautiful,
it. But
beautiful.
there is a cultural tendency. It's almost like a recovery. It's a post-colonial subject recovering from the trauma of in absence from the world. Right? We were absent for 200 years. The worst
Yeah,
part is not that money was taken away from us or any of that. It's the
yeah,
autonomy to not be present. Right?
yeah,
You no longer exist on the world map. You are restricted to
yeah,
your village. That's where we got eaten up. Um,
yeah,
tell me about this. I saw a bunch of your content on fitness,
yeah.
and I'm curious. What do you think about the fitness culture in India? Because
It's bullshit.
I think it's lagging, man. I think it's so
It's,
it's it's
it's
it's
just
it's
totally bullshit.
it's a facade. It's a grand lie,
It is because it only focuses on the external,
right?
the physical, the aesthetics. It only focuses on all of that. One,
Or
two.
who be galat, bro, and that too wrong. Like
Yeah,
it's all of that's fucked up.
yeah, yeah. So the number one thing being that it is horribly gone in just this one direction of becoming sexier. All right, matching up to that Bollywood ideal of having a six pack and this and that crap, and people are taking advantage of it for marketing. Supplement companies are hiring Bollywood celebrities, all right, to market their product. They're not hiring people who, let's say, fought depression, fought, let's say, some physical incapability, or someone who's a athlete like Mary Kom, who's a female, all right, 36 years old. She is right now in the World Boxing Championships. What an amazing woman! Has a
Uh-huh.
family, has kids, comes from an incredibly poor background.
But
If I
Priyanka Chopra
understand
gets
this
that
correctly,
job.
but Priyanka
But
Chopra gets that job.
it's kind of fucking ironic that she gets
Yeah,
the job because she played Mary Kom, man. It's
yeah,
so fucking ironic.
yeah.
I think there is such a massive underground steroid culture in the fitness industry in India that it's horrible.
That is because that ties into the again that immature masculinity, right? Guys
It's the
thinking
shortcut
that
mentality.
yeah, it's the shortcut mentality. Guys thinking that this is what is the scene. I gotta have these fucking six packs and this shit and that shit, and that is what will get me women. That is what will get me social media likes, and that is why I said social media is the best indicator of where the fuck people are fucking up and where the fuck. Even though they only show their best side is actually the best demonstration of their biggest weaknesses.
Right.
If that
Right.
makes sense.
Say that again. That was brilliant. Say that again.
I said that basically they show their best side online, but their best side is the biggest demonstration of their biggest weaknesses.
It's
You
when
know?
they're not talking about themselves that they're revealing themselves, kind of a thing,
Yeah,
right? It's like what they it's in what they're trying to hide that
yeah,
says it all.
yeah.
But bro, teko pata hai, me and my friends, we have a very indigenous kind of a humor. I have a group of friends
Okay.
back in Delhi.
Are like on different planets, man.
Right.
That guy is And yesterday I saw a photo of him diagonally on the floor.
I
All right.
know.
And
That
I
emotion I
showed
know.
that, yeah, and I showed that to my closest friend because she's staying over since yesterday over here. We had a work meeting and stuff. She's a designer. So I was showing that to her and she's like, who's this? I was like, this is something like,
This
we
is
need
a
to
true
bring over
fucking
here.
man. This is a
Yeah,
man who got his job done. That's what I say.
exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Like that's a man
What
who mastered his body.
Yeah, whereas Indian fitness, it's crazy because you can go onto YouTube and you have these absolute, I'm so sorry to say, but you have these absolute idiots who, let's say, just achieved one fucking thing when it came to fitness, whether through a small transformation or whether through roids or whatever. And today they are talking to an entire young generation of Indians, and you won't believe it. Some of these YouTubers, they know this weakness of theirs. They know that they are actually no fucking 2 cents worth people when it comes to fitness. So what they've started doing is that they've started branching off into whichever field that they can get a hold of, because they know sooner or later they will collapse, because they never spoke the truth, right? They
Right.
spoke what the audience wanted to hear. They never
Right.
spoke the truth. And what the audience wants to hear is almost never the truth, because they want self-reassurance. They want that, yes, I will have my soulmate, or yes, I will, if I do my these
Validate my
fucking.
narrative.
Exactly. So these motherfuckers are giving this entire nation exactly that.
They're giving them opium.
Exactly that. They're
Nasha
giving
de
them
rahe
that
hain.
opium.
Right.
Whereas they themselves are not physically fit in a way where physical fitness means holistic fitness. It
Mhm.
means, for me, fitness, the meaning changed so much, because in the Indian industry, the way, because I always come back to the YouTube fitness side of things, because I was thinking the moment I got into transforming myself, because of my hypothyroidism, I was starting to get fat and I was the shortest guy in my class. At the age of
Mhm.
14, I was diagnosed with a disease where for the rest of my life in the morning, I wake up and I have to take a medicine. So at the age of 14, I felt like a 90-year-old man. All right. And I realized that was just one thing which made me understand that, okay, I'm not physically capable. But then as I got deeper into it, I realized that it's not about being capable, it's about being ready.
Mhm.
It's about readiness. Physical fitness, mental fitness, any kind of fitness is about readiness. It's about preparedness. You are never supposed to achieve anything. You're just supposed to keep yourself primed for any
Mhm.
form of stress which you may come across, for any kind of mishap that you may come across. If somebody steals my friend's purse and runs away, I should have the
I
ability
can
to
do
catch
something.
that motherfucker. I
Mm.
should have
Mm.
that ability. If
You know
somebody
what I
tries
think?
to harm my old, father or mother on the road, I should have the ability to hold those motherfuckers down and show them what their place is.
Right.
All right. That is
Right.
what preparedness and readiness means.
Right.
If I have a disease, it should not eat me up to the point where I die, or, I have no ability to come back to life. Because if I've already primed myself and made myself so healthy, a disease can only dent me a little bit. It cannot
Right.
dent me to a point where, I'm fucked completely and
Here
I'm
is here,
fucking incapable.
here is my litmus test for people who claim they understand fitness, and this is something I learned myself over the course of my life.
Hmm.
If they eat only for their muscular growth, they are the
Hmm.
farthest away from the concept of fitness.
That is beautiful, bro. Because
Bro,
I came
matlab,
across
you
that
eat
shit
for
this year.
this, you eat for this,
Exactly.
you you
Exactly.
you eat for this. You don't eat for this. Like anybody who's
Yeah.
eating for this, you're doing it wrong. Like
You're
think
doing it
about it.
wrong. But
It's
it's
such a
okay.
superficial.
It's okay. You know why? As long as they don't remain stuck at that level and they can evolve, it's okay. Because see, the beginning has to take place somewhere. There is
It's
always a
part of the
square one.
journey.
There is always a square one, right? So if it begins with wanting that six pack and those biceps and stuff, that's fine, man. Like, that's fine. But don't fucking be stuck in that for the past 10 years of your life. Don't be
Right.
fucking stuck in that. And here I'll bring you this one guy, and I would actually welcome you to do a podcast with him, because he's my brother and he's as humble as both of us have been with each other. That his name is Abhinav Mahajan. You might have seen the most recent picture I put up on Instagram was with him when I mentioned that one of my closest people was here for a day, and
Right.
he's in the fitness industry and he knows what is going on. And he also made mistakes the way I made, but he still sticks to his truth, to the point where everybody else, every major fitness person, etc., have started to kind of imitate him a little bit. But what's the most amazing thing is that because of him, this year I became conscious of my eating habits to another level, because this guy does not eat for his physique. And this is a guy who was a fitness model before. He's been on Men's Health. He's walked the ramp for some of the biggest designers, Manish Malhotra, everyone. All right. And this guy today does not give a shit about his physical appearance. All right. And that is insane because literally his entire career depends on his physical appearance because he's a fitness person, he's a fitness influencer, he's a fitness Instagrammer, his every brand deal is fitness, fitness, fitness. And you need to understand that this guy made me realize that you're eating for your soul rather than your body. Because this year we were on a, our little family, we had like a trip together in Goa, just the closest friends. And I saw that he would not eat anything related to milk. He would not eat anything related to wheat. And I was someone who never gave a shit about these
Hey, is he
allergies
on
because
keto?
no, he's not. He's not.
Acha. So he's just no milk, sugar, no milk, sugar, dairy, sugar, gluten, right? That's what he's cut out.
Yeah, his thing is a little different because he has irritable bowel syndrome. His stomach is very, very sensitive.
Very personal.
Yeah, so he has to be more careful about that kind of stuff. But
Right.
And I was someone who never gave a shit about allergies or dairy or gluten and shit. And I thought I don't have anything, and I actually don't have any of those disorders. But because I gave that experiment a shot where I completely went off anything related to milk, dairy, I went off anything related to wheat as much as I could in my own human, possible, humble environment.
Right.
I noticed a fucking change. And the reason I noticed a freaking change was because a lot of this shit is not really pure today. One aspect is that, the milk in India, the dairy industry, whatever, because of the hormones they're pumping into the
Oh my
animals,
God.
whatever it is,
Right.
one, it is not pure. And second, it did show me how my performance and mental acuity, whatever you want to fucking call it, is a little different compared to how it was before. I was performing better on less sleep. I never had flatulence of any kind. I never had a bad
True.
experience in the
Bencho,
bathroom.
true. Gas, khatam, zero. I was
Khatam.
so surprised. I was like, बस मेरे को रोटी छोड़नी थी. Like I didn't
Exactly.
realize मैं पूरा time पाता था. Like I'm being very vulnerable here, right? That was like a non-stop phenomena. I was so afraid of doing physical activity around people because I was like, I might probably lose my fucking gas. All of that was gluten. Have you tried ketogenic? Have you tried the
I
ketogenic
haven't.
diet?
I haven't.
Bro,
I haven't.
the first time I got on it, and this was roughly 2 years ago now, October 2017, मेरे को ऐसा लग रहा था, I felt like I could I could climb walls. I was like, मेरे को Spider-Man बना दो बारिश में. I'm going to climb walls in the rain because the energy when it hits you, it's like a cocaine rush, bro. It's so intense because your means of converting food into energy changes, and it's a
I know
purer
that
form.
the metabolism switches from so working on glucose and glycogen to working on ketones. I know the entire process,
Right.
bro.
So you know the science, right? It's quite
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
You should give it
Bro,
a
I'm
shot.
telling you, if I would have gone into the fitness scene of YouTube at the time when I started my journey, or even 3-4 years after that, today we would be the foremost authority over here.
Oh
Because
wow.
the way I progressed and the way, like, bro, I remember I was 20 years old or something, and I wasn't like the steroid kind of big bodybuilder look. I was like a lean, normal person who was going to the gym and obviously had a serious approach to it. But I have a video on YouTube, you can check it out, of me pushing an entire school bus by myself. Now, imagine if at that time I would have put this on YouTube at that time, and the way it would have influenced young people, and if I could have brought them to the stage where I am at today when it comes to my physical fitness and my food which I eat and stuff like that. None of these idiots whom you see in the
Right.
Indian fitness industry, and I don't mean to demean everyone, I don't mean to come from a place of ego, I don't mean to do
Yeah,
any of
you're
that, but
talking about the mass majority in the
yeah,
bottom, right?
it's because I feel bad. That is why I let my language loose and I call them idiots, because I
Bro,
feel bad for what they're doing to the people, because the people have not been able to realize it yet. And by the time they realize, they would realize that they've lost too much time. They would realize that they lost the best years
they've
of their
lost
life chasing the
sterility,
wrong
man.
things. They've lost
Animorphs कर,
sterility.
हाँ, animorphs करके sperm मर जाएगा तुम्हारा बहनचोद. Where will you have kids
It's
from?
and the steroids thing is just one thing, because you have these 16-year-old boys in gyms taking roids, and that's just fucking pathetic, man. That is just fucking, like, I go like, like it saddens me. That is why I'm saying that idols, the fitness idols in India right now are not the right person to be, not the right people to be looking up to.
यार,
And
all
I
idols in
feel
India.
very like I feel very bad about that, but I can't do anything about it right now, and I will not, because if I do anything, even when I'm 100% sure, even when this fucking chat goes out, people will bring it to their attention, because in India we have that we will I do believe that we have that following mentality or that slave mentality to quite an extent, where
Fanatical,
they will,
fanatical.
yeah. So if I'm saying this and somebody thinks about their fitness YouTuber, what they will, the one they follow, they will not critically analyze this for their own self-worth and their own self analysis and betterment. What they will do is they will take this and send it to that person and go like, Sirhud Kalra spoke shit about you.
अरे ब्रो आने दे मेरे पास मेरे को तो कोई भी
No,
गाली
no,
नहीं
bro.
देता. I know
I'm
I'm
very,
messing with
very
you.
used to this. I'm very, very
हाँ,
used to
I'm
people
sure.
hating on me. I've had death threats come my way. I've had
For
women say,
what?
yeah. I've had some women say the most horrendous things to me on DM, for something which, like, on Instagram DM, and it wouldn't even be. It wouldn't. It's crazy, because when you have these women attack you, they never focus on what I did. They focus on random shit just to demean you. All right. They would not focus on my act or my reasoning for that act or my words or my reasoning for those words or my context within which I was operating at that point of time. They would never ever want to address that truth. They would only want to pick one thing out of context, which they can practice their liberty to be infuriated on, because they do believe today their voice is stronger than men and it should be used in a way where they can do whatever they want and demonstrate that power. This is where even they're going wrong, because they don't realize that sooner or later this will come back to them. And this is why I feel bad, because I am a servant of the feminine. I actually truly believe so. I'm working on men. My focus is men, but the end result is always the women benefiting, because I'm just making much better men that they can love, that they can fall in love with, that they can have a child with, that they can marry and be proud to call their husband.
Right.
Because I have come across women who are amazing women, and I feel so bad when they tell me their stories, because now it's just too predictable. The kind of boyfriends they had, the kind of experiences they had. I know their entire stories. I can fill their sentences for them, even if I'm meeting them for the first time in their life.
Right.
And because I crave to love every woman on this planet, because I crave to serve that feminine, because I do believe I have that ability. Obviously, at a human level, at a physical capability level, I cannot do this with every woman in the world. I cannot fall in love with every woman in the world. I cannot
Sure, sure,
recreate that
sure.
experience with every woman in the world. So what am I doing? I'm passing on what I am learning and what I have developed as to other men. So
Here
that,
is what I think. I
like,
think there is a heavy risk that you operate on of being misunderstood.
of course,
Right. Especially in a hypermoral context, I can totally see why people would misplace your intention and attack you for
yeah,
just what is apparently wrong. Right.
yeah,
The reasoning, rationale, the context, the background, all of that goes amiss. I get that.
yeah.
Let me ask you this: what goes into the mentorship program that you have? What are the components of your mentorship program?
There are different ones, man. So, for example, there is no standard program as of now, because right now I do only personal mentoring. And for the other problems, I'm trying to put out digital courses on the Freeman University. Of, now what I've even started doing is that coaching calls which I've had with people, we record them with their permission, and with their permission, we also put it up for sale as a digital course after censoring all personal details. So somebody who's in a very similar situation can, get the same coaching experience, but at 1/10 the cost of a proper coaching call with me. So the mentorship which I'm going to come up with now, because for the past 3 years it took a lot of struggle to build this entire thing, it took a lot of going against social momentum to build this entire thing. The mentorship I have is very, very greatly inspired by that King, Warrior, Magician, Lover book, because I actually designed my courses based on those names: King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. And the King thing was focusing on, and obviously everything is related to everything, but the King thing would focus on mastering your own inner kingdom. All right. The King, Warrior, the Warrior thing would focus on having an attitude and a mentality that can survive any attack and that can defend at any point needed, and not just from a physical level, but from mental fortitude, from resilience, from the ability to sustain, torture, from the ability to sustain torture in any form, whether it is an emotional form, a mental form, a spiritual form, a depressive form, any form, and as well as the ability to practice restraint, because restraint is a fantastic ability and people don't have that today at all. The best way to see that in practices. As soon as anybody's phone beeps, they pick it up. There is zero restraint, there is zero control, there is zero autonomy, which is coming from a place of grounding. You are only responding. Every human being today is just reacting. They are not proacting. They are just reacting to every fucking stimulus coming their way in an uncontrollable fashion. So that's what the warrior thing focuses on. The king was about understanding life, worldview, perspective, the values of, the concepts of value, death, time, all those kind of things. Then you have the magician, which is about social navigation, about the way you convert this piece of yourself into something which interacts with the outside world. Like a magician, you can change your form of expression. You can change the way you receive everything else on the outside. So magician is focused more on communication, whether it is verbal, body language, whatever the fuck it is, that's what the magician is about. And the lover comes about covers everything which comes within the masculine feminine relation. So from level one, where people need to learn how to get their first date, to the final level where you can practice love with multiple people in a way where it is not self-damaging, in a way where you do not need to lie, in a way where it is honest, value adding, coming from a place of good intent, and just the amount of happiness that you have is just, it's insane. And that you can share that happiness at the same time with other people. And these are concepts which I don't fucking think India is ready for at all, but that's all right, because the way we have been able to come across, luckily, up until now, is that we've had a lot of these people who've attacked us actually turn around and today stand by us and say that, fuck, we were wrong, or so if we were able to bring that kind of humility into people, that's fantastic, because what I hope for is that I keep doing my work, and ultimately it will explode when the time is right. But I'm not doing it for the explosion. I'm doing it for that one person who's listening to me and able to understand and analyze me critically as well, and take from me only that which will add further to his life, or her life. Because recently what has started happening is that I've had suddenly an upsurge of women following me on Instagram. I've had an upsurge of women sending me messages, supportive messages, sharing incredible stories. And I've always had women on our side from the start. But now, all of a sudden, since that one incident which I mentioned happened on my travel that I've not been able to digest fully, the first lecture that I gave after that, for the first time in my life, I had more women sitting there than men. And since that day, it was very symbolic for me, because I did not realize the significance at that point of time. But the way the world functions, the way media functions, the way advertising functions, is that they target women. And women do not even know this, by the way. But they target women. Because women's spending habits are more emotional. All right. And that is a biological difference between man and woman. And obviously people will hate it if I talk about these differences.
Also because most domestic financial choices are made by women. Most domestic consumption, the choices are
like the daily consumption, the higher frequency purchases, the low quantity purchases, etc. So scale is there, right? You can't sell a house to a man every day, but you can sell him fucking coffee powders or whatever every day, So the scale and the profit is in the scale. So women themselves don't understand this, including women who are, strong advocates of young women. Because the funniest thing, this is the funniest thing in my opinion when it comes to this debate of people having social justice movements, and they actually put it on their Instagram bio, they put it in their Tinder bio, they put it all there that I'm feminist as fuck, all right, or whatever. The way it comes off when you're a 19-year-old girl, or 20-year-old girl, even a 24, 25-year-old girl, but you haven't even understood yourself. It shows through your language, it shows through your behavior, it shows through your demonstration. And this stands true for all of us, stands true for me also, it stands true for you also. How can we decide how to portray ourselves as when we ourselves don't know ourselves completely, And you have these women who at 19 act like they know everything about the world, and that is why they believe in feminism. But you have the first conversation with them, and within 2 minutes, boom, there's the first loophole in their logic. In 2 minutes, boom, there's the next default in their reasoning. Boom, 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 to the point where they have two options. Either they exit the conversation as soon as possible, or they go crazy, attack you, say that you are attacking me, record it, put it up on social media, make it viral, and ruin a man's life for his entire life. So you have these, this is what is happening right now. And this is why I'm saying that the individual today is disintegrated. That is why the focus of the free man's ideology is on the individual. and the individual's understanding of an ideology, of a way of living, and sharpening that throughout in a way where his own environment, his own roots are also incorporated. It is not a totalitarian ideology. It is not something which says this is the only way to live. It is a self-evolving philosophy which you give birth to yourself. But obviously, we allow you to take inspiration from mythology, from philosophy, from the sciences of psychology, and then obviously building the self and the individual. But ultimately, you are the one who decides what the free man means to you. And that is very, very important because it gives you that ability to practice that individuality which has been taken away from you today.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
Right.
that is what is happening.
And what's up next with the Freeman as a project or Sirhud Kalra? There is a university I hear about. I
Yeah.
think you're in the process of launching your own podcast.
Yeah.
What comes next for you?
Bro, to be honest, I'm going to fucking make sure that the youth of this country does not fall on the wrong path, to be honest, because I believe India is at a very, very crucial stage right now where the our generation, like these current people, before they become parents, before they become families, before they become active citizens of this country, right now we are all in our startup culture. Everybody's doing the university, everybody's going into, yeah, I believe in feminism, I believe in hindutva, I believe in Modi, I believe in this. I don't care what people believe in, but I know that their beliefs come from a place of either that validation or fitting into a social group or whatever. So I know that the individual of our nation is disintegrating today, and I want to ensure that I can try to prevent that as much as possible, because if this particular generation that India is producing does not understand what is right and wrong for them personally, they will never understand what is right and wrong for their families when they are married. They will never understand what is right and wrong for their kids when they have kids. They will never understand what is right and wrong for their neighborhood, and accordingly for their nation, and accordingly at the end for the entire species. They will not understand this.
I
So
think
my focus is on doing my work without any disturbance, any negative energy coming from outside. I'm not going to be, distracted by that, because luckily I've had enough practice by now of these kind of things, that now I am going to be so relentless in my pursuit that each and every day just have to make sure that my voice is going out. And you won't believe the way my voice is going out is that people have themselves created podcasts by my name and have been putting it out there and giving me credit. Like the amount of people that are waking up, because they're, like, I don't even care about the social media numbers, to be honest, because I care about, even if I have 100 people, if I can have a proper deep level impact on those 100 people, those 100 people can impact the 5 closest people in their life simply by bringing this change to themselves. That the 5 closest people, even if they don't know who Sirhud Kalra is, they will ask them that, I love what you're doing, or how are you doing this, etc., etc., etc. And then that person can bring a change to their life. So up until now, I was like an enabler or an influencer, or whatever you want to say, or a genuine influencer, not an influencer in the blogging sense for this fucking Instagram shit. But what I mean is in the way that I could influence a person's way of living and a way of thinking. And now I just want to be that person who gives birth to more of these kind of people who can change their own micro environment and the people in their own micro earth or micro environment, atmosphere, whatever you want to call it. And I believe that ripple effect has already started at a massive scale. I'm not aware of it because I'm the originating point. All right, I'm the origin, and the cycle has gone out, but it has not come back to me yet right now. There is still a few years before it comes back. So I have absolutely no idea about who my audience is. I have
right.
absolutely no idea about how many people are hearing me out, looking at me, etc. I am in complete delusion, to be honest, because I only see good in people, and I believe everybody else can also do that. But anyway, that's a different discussion.
Right.
But
Right.
like I have no idea about the impact that I've created, and sometimes when I come across people and stories, bro, I actually am astonished as to why would someone listen to me this much that they would change their entire fucking life. And it's greatly humbling, to a point where I have nothing to ask for from my life anymore.
Right.
I don't want anything. Whatever I desire is coming to me on its own, because I'm just focusing on my purpose and I'm doing my thing, and I'm not getting into other people's things. Whoever is getting into my thing, sooner or later, feels bad, feels sad because they were attacking the wrong side. You want to have an argument with me, you want to have a debate with me, please come on, let's do it, but let's do it with love, because only then can we reach a conclusion which is mutually beneficial. I don't have the, but anyway, coming back to the thing,
Right.
the Freeman University teaching everything that a parent can never teach you, that your teachers in school just don't have the capability to even talk about, because they got that job because they thought they needed the money and that is the thing which they can do, etc. So even they're living a false life. Next, you can't talk about this shit with your friends because maybe not everybody wants to become the best version of themselves, and that is completely fine. Maybe they're just fine being where they are. So you lack that support system to engage in and become better together. So this is a place where you don't feel alone. That is why we have the brotherhood, and it's going to be a global network now. So that's the plan with the university. And what I want to do is I want to bring in experts from every field, so that whatever a person wants to learn, it's the money should not be a barrier to them. It will be a digital course. It'll be easy. So let's say I want to learn Jeet Kundo, which is Bruce Lee's martial arts form. I know a guy in Pune who's part of my network. He's an old friend, and he's like a next level expert and practitioner of this particular art. Now I want to approach him, get him to design a course for the people. And as long as his intent is positive, as long as he has value to provide, those are the kind of people I want to bring onto the platform and teach people everything from personal finance, learning how to fucking invest in stocks for the first time, or manage your own money, even if you're a basic salaried IT professional.
That's a good
Or
idea, man.
yeah. So because I do believe I don't know everything, of course, and I'm not an expert in everything. So I will teach things where I believe I can add value, but I will have that space for other people to come and teach their own things as well. And most people forget this, that the free man, just because it has the word man, does not mean that it is only for men. And they have not understood this yet, because the
I was going to ask you
ideology,
that.
yeah, the ideology is shaped in such a way that it is adaptable to women. I've had more women recently ask me that why don't you start something like the free women, the free woman. But truth be told, the way I use the word man is as in mankind. All right, is as in the way we've always used it to define history and shit like that. So it is just a word. It is not the gender that I'm focused on. I
I see
have
what you mean.
women. I have women on emails, Instagram, etc., taking advice from me, sharing the stuff that they've learned from me from videos which technically are targeted towards men. But for someone who wants to learn, you can learn from a tree who doesn't even say anything.
Right.
You can learn from anything, as long as you have the desire and as long as you have the intent to recognize the positive in that other person. Because
Right.
people forget today, the biggest problem is that people are forgetting their own goodness simply because they can't see it on the outside. They think the only way to survive now is to kill your own goodness and become a motherfucker like everybody else. But they don't realize that everybody is good on the inside, but everybody's pretending to be a motherfucker on the outside because they think that is the formula to win. It's horrendous. It's
We're so
delusion
obsessed with
at
winning.
another fucking level.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah. If you find me capable enough, and if you ever need me to contribute to the university in any form or fashion, I'd be
Fuck
happy to.
yeah. Fuck
I'd be
yeah,
happy
bro.
to, man. I'd
Fuck
be
yeah.
happy to be, because I think financial literacy is a good place to begin scooping up men in one
For
direction. Is
sure.
that, like, get a fucking hold of what a balance sheet means, get a fucking hold of how you do your taxes, get a fucking hold of
Yeah.
how you make investments into fucking, like, savings into investment. Understand that.
Yeah.
And from there, everything from how you talk to how you dress to
Yeah.
how you communicate, which is like the
Yeah.
overall function, all of that's very essential. I think there is scope for that, especially with the audience that you have, the size of the
Yeah.
audience that you have. I think it's a move, man. I'm with you on that. I give
Thank
you I
you.
give you
Thank
credits
you.
for that thought. Is there a question you have for me?
No, man. For now, it's amazing, like the conversation we had, and I hope this experience turns out something which even my people learn and love a lot. Because I've had a lot of people tell me to do this podcast thing, but recently I wasn't listening to the people who loved me. I was listening to the people who did not love me. And recently my reception of energy and communication has become fine tuned to a level where no poison enters me anymore, because I filter it out way before that person can even enter my life.
Right.
So the closest people to me were already telling me about this podcast thing, but it never fucking struck me, because the things we can talk about in English and that the educated audience of India and the urban and the technically developed, whatever you want to fucking call it, audience of India can understand. I can never put that on YouTube, man. They'll ban me. I can't. It's not a free platform. It's not. It does not support that. So they will never ever let that happen. But a podcast and personal lectures are the best way to do it. And I do believe that my coming back to the English audience is massively going to happen via the podcast rather than my English YouTube channel. I think the English YouTube channel for now will be something on which the rest of the world can also discover me. Because in the beginning, when we had the first 10,000 subscribers, almost 50 to 60% of that was from foreign countries. And that is crazy. When I'm just starting out a YouTube channel with, algorithms that are focused on localization, that my content was being found by these people showed me that my content organically won't be supported, and that only people who are searching for the truth will be able to find it, because they'll do the research to come to those kind of sources. Like, you want to say Jordan Peterson, you want to say your podcast, anyone who's trying to be unfiltered and real and put it out there.
Right.
Only the people who make the effort to find these people will come across it. And I love that, because this shit is valuable. This shit is more fucking valuable than even getting $100 million in your bank account. I definitely believe that.
The first stage you need to cross to come across to somebody like you is accept yourself as somebody who's a work in progress.
Yeah.
Right.
And we all are.
All of us are. As a matter of fact, I have to tell myself, okay, you know what? You don't have it figured. So let's look it up. Information's free on this stuff. It's called the internet. So I Google, how do I speak to women so I don't embarrass myself every time? And I come across somebody like you, or I come across somebody like, I don't know, whoever who was talking about this stuff. But it takes a level of acceptance. It takes a level of courage. It takes a level of honesty that the gossip economy of urban middle class India does not allow for people like us to express without being questioned. I say, don't give a fuck. I say, all of us together can be the forebearers of culture and cultural revolutions if we decide to be, because we have the understanding, but we are satiated with just being better than our neighbor. And that, I think, is the poison of our minds as far as my in-group is concerned. My people are concerned. I grew up there. I had to learn to get out of that zone. I had to tell myself, I had to convince this past version of myself that if I was to tell the truth, only good can happen from there.
Correct.
Only good can happen from there. And that, it's been a fantastic journey. It's been a fantastic journey. I hate it when people tell me that I'm some sort of a radical thinker as far as my home context is concerned. And very often my parents would tell me that, or my domestic crowd would tell me that. And I'm like, if really I who's the most non-confrontational, the most centrist person is radical. Like I honestly am just telling the truth, man. I'm
Bro, I 100% know, because the reactions that the outside world used to give to me in the start, before they kind of understood what I'm trying to do, I put out a very assaholic vibe. All right, when somebody comes across me for the first time, they will think that I'm someone with attitude. They will think that I'm this, I'm that, etc. Whereas the people closest to me were always saying this, Sarath, nobody knows these sides of you that we know, because I am the most delicate fucking panda bear ever. I am like a fucking soft teddy who only wants to love these people and hug them and allow them to get a good night's sleep. But these motherfuckers will never understand that, because they can't see beyond the first impression. They can't see beyond that. And they love to come from a place of higher moral ground that, oh, we know everything, we will tell you what is right and wrong. Whereas people like us are just putting out our truth. We are not even telling people what is right and wrong. We are putting out our truth. We are putting out our perspective.
It's a buffet. Pick up whatever you want, leave whatever you want. You don't have to listen to me. I get that. But on that note, man, this has been fantastic. I think we went on for like 2 hours or something. This has been a great time. Hopefully, people get to hear this. Hopefully, people find out about you, whoever listens to me. Listens to you. But yeah, I think if there is one message you and I commonly agree on, is that we do not hold back on truth, and that's the journey both of us are on a personal level, on a social level, on a cultural level, on an ideological level. It's been fantastic, man. Let's stay in touch.
Of course, man. I've already told you. I've already told you the request which I had for you towards the end of the year, what you have to try from your own side in your own university. So that is hopefully that if that works out, then definitely we'll be able to meet. But I know sooner or later we will end up meeting anyway. We will end up sharing a stage, talking about these kind of things. with people who are only wanting to, spread the love which they have within themselves to the rest of the world outside. I don't care
Right.
about whether people are rich or poor. I don't care about whether people are feminist or not feminist. I don't care about any of that shit, man. I really, really adore every human being or any being with life inside of them, because I know the potential of that life, and I know that the goodness it carries should not be diminished just because the
Right.
rest of the world is a little bit dark, you know.
Right. Right.
So whether it is people attacking me but learning from me, or it is people worshipping me and learning from me, I don't care, as long as they're learning and as long as I know that, fuck man, this shit worked. People were able to bring a change personally in their own life. I don't care about what they do on the outside. I don't care about how much money they earn, how many girlfriends they make. I don't care about any of that shit. I just care about that at night they get a peaceful night's sleep. They don't wake up with depression. They don't wake up the next day saying, oh fuck, I don't want to get out of the bed. That's all I care about, because I have been in those fucking places.
Right.
I have been
I
in
get
those
that.
fucking places.
I get that.
You know?
Cheers to that. Cheers to that,
Cheers
bro.
to that, man.
This
Cheers
has
to
been
that.
fun.
Cheers to that.
I picked up my teacup. You should do that too.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Cheers,
dude.
cheers.
Okay.
Fantastic.